All right, what's up, y'all? Heading to work. Got my monster in hand and making my morning commute. It's about an hour away. But first, let me read a Bible verse. Oh, let's go. Ooh, be somebody. Damn, I got that red, white, and blue Raz. Pretty damn good. So in the previous video, I talked about how we made 45 grand off the very first book that we created. We split it 3 ways, since it was a team of 3, and I made a little bit under 10 grand myself. Now I know what you're thinking. Rolled. 10 grand is not a third of 45,000. Well, you got to factor in some taxes and other expenses that we put into making this book. So what did I do with that sub 10 grand? You might think that, hey, I can upgrade and buy a new iPad, buy a new Apple Pencil, buy some new tech to elevate this artwork. However, I did none of those. I just invested it. Invested in what? I'll stick around and I'll talk more about it. But first, let me give you a little backstory about how that money happened. We sold over 2,500 copies of our first book, The Elote Man Goes to College, written by my sister-in-law, Maia co-illustrated by myself and my wife. We sold mainly through schools here in Central California. It's a tight-knit community, and word spread. We split the money 3 ways because we're a team. I did the sketching, Charlemagne did the coloring and formatting. My cut wasn't quit my job money, honestly. Since I am a nurse, nurses can pick up a few shifts here and there and make that money within a few months. This 10 grand or sub 10 grand that I made was made over 5 years, which it doesn't seem like much, but I think the book sales is just a measurement of our success. And I like having a number to reference to improve on future books. I like to treat this as a long game. I'm here for a long time, not a good time. So I illustrated this book while I was in nursing school, and we've been selling it throughout my whole career as a nurse. I was tempted to buy, I'm not gonna lie, a new iPad, new Apple Pencil, as I was talking about. I even wanted to upgrade my computer. I want to build a new computer. I already have all that I need for art to be an illustrator. You don't need much, especially when you have an iPad. Creating art digitally is such a game changer. A lot of people look down on digital art, but traditional art can be expensive. But I learned my lesson from blowing my money on all those things in the past. Honestly, it wasn't the book money that made me think to be financially responsible. It was nursing. I never imagined the amount of money that I would make as a nurse. It's not a large amount, but it can definitely change my lifestyle. It's a great career that lets me enjoy the things I do in life, such as art. But that bump in income, it left me wanting more. A new tablet, new computer. That lifestyle creep really got a hold of me. Suck its claws into me. This is not the focus of the video, but I'll do a separate pay of my nursing pay if y'all are interested. It's always good to hear what nurses make, so we're not getting lowballed, right? So what I actually did, I invested it. At the time, I was diving deep into learning personal finance, how to actually manage my money, how to build some real wealth, have some financial freedom, if you will. So when this book money came in, I did what I was actually learning, which was investing it. not saving it, but investing it. Putting my money to work rather than putting my money to sit in a bank and make nothing with it. Specifically, I opened up a Roth IRA, tried to reach my max contribution limit to that. It allowed me to increase my 401k contributions for each check, and I was able to open up a high yield savings account. I mean, not that I wasn't able to, but it made the decision a whole lot easier when you have extra income coming in. So before nursing, I was working a whole lot of entry-level jobs. I'm a psych nurse. I was working in behavioral health before. I was RBT, so I'm still working with autistic kids, going to people's homes, doing some data collection, teaching them stuff, getting to do some fun stuff with some kids. Not a bad job. Very challenging, but I enjoyed it very much. It was very rewarding. But I spent almost everything that I made on useless stuff. I saved nothing. I invested nothing. Although I did stay out of debt. I think I would be in a few $100s debt here and there, but I paid off really quick. But it was just from buying stuff with my credit card. Dumb. I was very dumb. Handled money poorly, like most people do, and it's a common thing. And it's I splurged on Copic markers, Prismacolor markers. I was buying brush ink pens, trying to be like Kim Jong-gi, R.I.P. to the great. I thought buying all this stuff would make me a better artist, or at least motivate me to be a better artist. However, I'm sure it helped a little bit, but I spent money on useless things. Younger me was trying to do some art. I thought the gear would make a difference. It did not. Now, my nursing income covers my needs and my future, through retirement accounts and stuff like that. And a very little amount goes to my wants, and it's still enough for me to enjoy life and do fun things like this, art, and make YouTube videos. Shoot. But why am I doing this? Building a career or a side career as an illustrator has been a blast. I'm not worried about landing an illustration job or building a huge following. I'm just doing what I want to do. I get to create art and make a book and just have that physical copy in my hand and presenting it to my family and friends and other people who might be interested, especially our local educators here in Central California. We get a lot of recognition, which is so encouraging. I love this stuff. I love art. I'm doing what I want to do, and I think that's cool. And if it sells, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But beyond making art, I'm learning the industry, how to market myself, how to sell myself while staying true to who you are. I think that's important. That's kind of my mantra, if you will. I heard once a study in palliative care that the most common regret that people have at their end of their life is that they wish they were able to be themselves. They were more true to themselves, and that hit pretty hard for me. I'm Filipino. Most Filipinos have that generational trauma. It causes me to be anxious, very insecure of myself. It makes me doubt myself. It makes me feel like I'm not always where I want to be in life. However, life is short, and the people that you love could be gone at any moment. I can be gone from the people that care about me at any moment, and it can be a scary thought. So staying true to myself at all times is something that I strive for. I know if I fail, which I have already, plenty of times. But I welcome those failures because I want to grow as a person, as an artist, as a nurse. Money to me is just the byproduct of staying true to yourself and doing what you actually love. Do I want to get rich off illustration? Hell yeah. Will it happen? Maybe, maybe not. But either way, it's what I want to do. And I am forever a student in this life. Getting back to kind of why I decided to invest my money or use the money that this book gave me. Before all this, I made a horrible decision. Like I said, I stayed out of debt, I saved nothing, and then all of a sudden became a nurse 4 years ago, and I started making money. I went and bought a Toyota Tacoma, this bad boy I'm driving in right now. Dumbest thing I've ever done. I love this truck, but I went from zero debt to $60,000 in debt. What the hunk is going on right now? That was a wake-up call for me. How am I supposed to build wealth while I'm owing $60,000 plus interest on this dumb truck? Sorry, baby. That one dumb decision honestly was what sparked my interest in personal finance, learning how to be a better steward of my money. Nobody ever taught me about finance, but once I started learning it, it just clicked. It's not complicated, it's just discipline. And what requires a lot of discipline? Art. Ooh, I'm really good at that. So, here comes the money, let it rain. If you stay disciplined and build some good fundamentals, investing, budgeting, living below your means, you will see your wealth grow. I wish I knew this in my 20s. My parents didn't have this knowledge either, and I don't blame them. Most people don't. We're raised to be consumers, not investors. What this money means to me now, this extra income from being an illustrator, gives me breathing room and some peace of mind. If something goes wrong, I know I'll be okay. I can keep doing what I love because my day job covers my needs. This income from illustration doesn't cover my wants just yet. However, eventually it will. I believe it. I keep a budget so I don't blow through all that that safety net that I have from nursing, because that cushion matters to me. Some of that book money also went right back into the business. We sold out our first 500 copies, and we used that to buy the next 700 copies, and then from there we used that money to buy the next 1,500 copies. So now it's funding our next book. My Librarian is a Spy, out in November. Check it out. I think it's a really good book. It's a fun book. I'm really proud of the artwork on it. Maia's a good storyteller. Great book for kids, if you got kids, or if you're a teacher. I'm not sharing these numbers to brag or anything. I think it's useful for people who are trying to understand how to manage their own money. When I was learning, I watched pretty much every finance YouTuber that I can find. Dave Ramsey, that Called the Leap guy, Steve, I believe his name is, a teacher turned financial educator. Pretty cool. And also Milan Singh. Wow. I follow Milan. How do you know all this? I follow Milan. I also try to surround myself by people that have this knowledge on how to manage their finances. I have great friends that teach me about just the fundamentals of how to build some wealth, and I'm very grateful for that. But what would you do differently if you had some extra income coming into your hands? And if you're curious of how much a registered nurse makes here in Central California, I'll be covering that in a future video. I'm actually really excited about talking about that because people don't want to talk about how much they make. I want to know how much you make. It's not taboo. Let's talk about money, baby. All right, peace out.